You're listening to Optimal Fusion, a Shin Megami Tensei podcast.
I'm Austin, and I'm familiar with Shin Megami Tensei.
I'm Patrick, and I'm not familiar with Shin Megami Tensei.
And in this podcast, we'll discuss our playthrough of the newest SMT game,
Shin Megami Tensei V,
for the Nintendo Switch. Patrick, with this being your first Shin Megami Tensei experience, what were you expecting going into this?
So I don't know. I literally not familiar with this series at all. I have watched some people stream a little bit of Persona 5.
Yeah.
And I recently watched a stream just incidentally of I think it was Shin Megami Tensei 2.
Okay.
A little bit. And both of those are pretty short experiences, of me kind of casually while I was doing something else. By chance, people I knew were involved in these streams, and I wasn't watching it for the game. I was just kind of trying to support them.
I see. I was wondering how you stumbled into SMT2.
Shout out to Jay from the Huge from the Super Switch Heads community. He was with some friends who were streaming it, and
very cool.
He posted that, and so I watched it for a while. So that's about it, other than just what I know from talking to you or general osmosis of gaming culture. But they've never really been games on my radar, period.
when you were interacting with Persona 5 material, did you know that was a Shin Megami Tensei offshoot IP?
I don't know when I've learned that fact.
Got it.
But definitely not when I first heard of Persona. I've heard of Persona for a while, but never looked into it or familiar with the mechanics or the history of it. I feel like I must have learned that, again, maybe through you or through just sort of more recent with this game being on the horizon. Yeah.
Got it. And I'm realizing in a recent podcast, we kind of went through the history of SMT, but very briefly.
Yeah.
But this is a game series that has been around since the early 90s, first released on the SNES, I believe. Or
of the official Shin Megami Tensei games or whatever.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's true. There are other games in this series though before that. This series is crazy.
Yes.
I think that's what's weird to me too. Yeah, so we did talk about this. I guess we should say we're gonna cover pretty much everything we covered on the Super Switch Heads podcast, but episode 139 of Super Switch Heads should listen to. Austin was the guest, and we talked about this game, sort of general first impressions, and then in this podcast we're going to dive deeper. But I looked this series up to do a little research for that, and I didn't realize it was based on novels.
Yes.
A Japanese novel,
Devil Summoner, right?
Something like that. Mm-hmm. Digital Devil something or other. Mm-hmm. We should probably look this up, or not.
Go back to the other podcast for more accurate details.
I'll pull it up
for research.
Digital Devil Story, a science fiction novel series by, I probably won't pronounce this Japanese name right, but Aya Nishitani. So it's more than one book, I'm guessing, but maybe the series is known as Digital Devil Story. I don't know.
I think that's right.
But that surprised me. I mean, not that it really is that big of a surprise, but back in 1987, there was a PC game.
I see. That's right.
And then there was an NES game, which I think was the same one, right? They probably just ported it over to the NES.
Yeah.
And then at some point they started calling, there was another game, and then they started calling them Shin Megami Tensei in the early 90s, like you said, for this. Well, Super Famicom, because I don't think they came out in the
They did not.
US.
Yeah.
The 3 was the first one in the United States, or was that even not out in the United States? Do you know?
3 was out in the United States, I believe.
Okay.
Yep. And it was on the PS2, which was a jump from Nintendo consoles to the PlayStation. And since the mainline series has returned to Nintendo. So I think that's
Yeah, but there's
of note.
all these other ones.
Yes.
Right? So like there's these numbered ones, and I don't pretend to like have done research on this, but there's one called 9. And it's like that's some confusing numbering. But yeah.
Yes. And there's also my first game in the series was Devil Survivor Overclocked, which was on the 3DS. And it is kind of like our last podcast was about Fire Emblem, and that's a more tactics game. This is kind of the tactics version.
Okay.
Where you have the grid and you're moving characters around, but each character represents like a 3-person RPG party in itself. So it's them and 2 demons they've summoned. And so you're moving around the grid, and all of that kind of matters strategically, but then you're also going into these turn-based combat systems.
Yeah, there's a lot of spinoffs,
yes.
apparently. And most notably, I guess, Persona, which seems to have become maybe the biggest of all of them, right? Like,
and most like commercially successful.
Right.
I think both in the East and the West. That feels like a big statement. I can say in the West for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And we can delve into this as much or as little as we want. But there has also been a lot of the reviews for SMT5. There have been a lot of comparisons of Persona 5 and SMT Shin Megami Tensei 5. And I think what's important to note in those conversations is that like both are JRPGs and have similar combat systems, but I think similar to like you go to the grocery store and there's like varieties of different kinds of ice creams with chocolate in it.
Right.
Like they're all chocolate ice cream, but there's some people want that chocolate with the chocolate chunks. Some people want nuts in it. So Persona has those social systems that are more separate from the battles and kind of give you that break. I have never played a Persona, but my understanding is that the battles, though challenging, are not as challenging as those in Shin Megami Tensei mainline, and that is kind of the appeal of it.
Right.
I'd also say the feel is in Shin Megami Tensei, the world has already ended in all of the games. You're already in this kind of bleak apocalypse. It has this kind of isolation, loneliness feel to it. And I think you're supposed to feel that almost like a survivalist weight.
I feel that weight in this game.
Yes.
Or like I feel that vibe at least. Yeah.
And Persona still has darkness to it and some of those apocalyptic vibes, but it's more contemporary and more kind of poppy, a little bit more tongue-in-cheek humor around it as well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
You were talking about Shin Megami Tensei games being hard. I think going back to your first question to me, that's the other thing. And maybe I even said that, but like that's hammered in by like anybody that brings up the series. These games are hard. So that was the other thing I knew.
So let's jump into your experience of the game so far. You're playing it on normal mode, is that right?
That is not right.
Oh, tell me.
I'm playing it on casual.
Okay.
So I don't know. Everybody says these games are really hard. And I opened this game up for the first time, and it tells me casual is suggested if you've never played a Shin Megami Tensei game.
And just to be clear, casual is easier than what are so there's hard?
Yeah, there's hard, normal, and casual.
I see.
And then apparently there's free DLC for safety mode, which I'm not playing on that. I'm playing on casual, and we should talk about this since we're already there. But like, I don't know. I definitely didn't stress about it for 2 reasons. Number one is the game told me I've never played one of these games before. You should be on casual. Everybody says how hard these games are. I figure why not? I also understand from our conversations that I can, and also I think the game even says this, that I can change it
That's right.
in the middle of the game up to normal if I want. I don't think there's any chance I'm going to want to knock it up to hard.
And you can't.
Right.
You have to start on hard to play in hard. You can start in hard and move down,
Right.
but you can never, and you can move between normal and casual, but you can't bump back up to hard once you've started or fallen below that.
Which incidentally, the previous podcast, Austin, we did with, optimal pairing. That was the case in that game too for Fire Emblem Three Houses, right? Like you could swap between the two lower ones, but you couldn't, or you could go down, but you can't go up. Is that what it was?
And Fire Emblem, that's right. You can take it down a notch anytime, but you can't go up even between the two lower settings.
I wonder what the reasoning is in both of these situations. If it's a development issue, like once we've got the numbers or whatever for hard, for some reason that doesn't translate, or if it's strictly a like we feel like people are going to cheat the system game, or you know what I mean, like say they beat it on hard but who cares? I don't, because if that's the case, but it may not be, maybe there's some other reason and I don't pretend to know.
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
I will say I'm playing it on hard. So we should also say this. I have played Shin Megami Tensei 4, Devil Survivor, and 4. I made some good progress. I think I'm like, probably a handful of hours towards beating it, and I something else came out that took my attention away from it. I should return at some point. But I had a good time, and I feel like near the end of it, I had kind of, I don't want to say mastered it, but like the initial difficulty that I felt going into SMT4, I felt like I had a mastery of the battle concepts. And so I thought going into this, I'd give hard a try. And so far I am having a good time with that.
Yeah. You could always knock it down.
Yeah. In casual.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. In casual.
What's your experience with the difficulty?
So I have died still a few times. I think I might knock it up though. I don't know. So like I would say that I'm starting to finally understand the game, like literally today, the day that we're recording this. Like in the sense that like some of the mechanics that felt obtuse or just new are starting to, I'm getting the rhythm with. And I think because of that, I'm doing a little better and maybe it's time, but I'm not in a rush to, because I don't know. I don't know if I'm over leveled. I honestly don't know. You know what I mean? Like maybe I'm over leveled. Maybe I'm getting in the groove, but I don't want to get too cocky yet. And also like, I'm not feeling yet like it's too easy.
Okay. So we are going to enter into spoilers for about, I would say the first 4 to 6 hours of the game. I'm going to ask Patrick about the first boss in the game. So if you don't want those spoilers, this is kind of the time to maybe check out and come back after you've gotten to the Tokyo Tower. So you have shared with me that you made it to the Tokyo Tower boss.
Yes.
How many tries did that boss battle take you?
2.
Okay.
Which that's where like I feel like maybe I'm getting to the point, like I said, that I need to do this. You say 4 to 6 hours, and that's funny to me because my in-game save file says 7 hours. So that might be why I'm like, I don't know if I'm over leveled or like, or what. I think I was level 14.
Okay.
I think I approached the boss at level 12 and died.
Okay.
And then the Hydra boss. And then I was like, okay, I'm on casual and I died. That's shameful. But at the same time, whatever. Maybe not. Maybe it's not shameful. Maybe I should just own it. Yeah. I just did. But like, so then I went back and like did a few more side missions and grinded a little bit and leveled up a little bit. And then I felt like it was pretty easy, actually.
I see.
when I was level 14. And maybe to the point where it was too easy. But that's what I'm not sure about, you know? And then I went ahead and did the mermaid side quest boss that's shortly thereafter. I forget the name of that lion angel looking thing, demon thing.
I don't remember his name either, but I know he was giving out a certain energy that I enjoyed.
So lion boy was also easy, and that's where I am right now. I beat those, and that's where I'm like, maybe I do need to knock it up to normal.
So in hard, I beat Hydra and felt very satisfied with kind of my performance, and it was my third battle that I beat him after being taken for a ride in the first two battles, and then I figured out one of the status ailments that it was weak to and really abused the heck out of that. And I
which one?
So this is where we're entering into spoilers.
Yeah.
It's resistant to all of the status ailments except for sleep. So I would put it to sleep, and then I would load it up with debuffs and load up my people with buffs, and then just wail on it. And then I would put it to sleep whenever it filled its Matasuki gauge.
Is that what it is?
I think that is close enough. For the back-to-back criticals, so it would just sleep through its 2 turns where it would get instant criticals. So that was easy, and then I went to go fight Lion Man, and he destroyed me, and I had to go do some other side quests before I could return to him confidently. So I am wondering, listening to you, if you should bump it up.
Yeah, I might have to. Like I said, it's sort of, that's where I'm at, and I'm on the fence about it, but we should probably back up and talk about some other parts of the game. But since we're here and we're talking about this, like, you just explaining that to me already has opened my eyes to some things. Like, I think I didn't realize that certain enemies would be like more susceptible to sleep or whatever. And I think that's probably an argument for me knocking it up a bit, because it's like, that sounds like a more interesting mechanic, because sleep isn't one of the elements, right?
It is not.
So that's like a separate,
yeah,
I don't know what you call it, sphere of the game or whatever, that is not very clear to a novice player.
Okay.
Maybe I'm wrong, but like, there's no like, yes, I don't know. I don't remember anybody saying like poison or sleep or those things. Some enemies are going to be more susceptible to it than not. Maybe it did and I missed it.
Gotcha. It's not explained as directly as the weaknesses, the elemental weaknesses. And so when you use like the lens to see, and maybe you're not even using the lens. I have
not used a single spyglass.
Oh, so that's when you use the spyglass, you'll get all this information underneath the little bar where it shows the elemental weaknesses. There will also be other little icons that correspond to the status ailments.
Okay.
And it'll have weak or resistant or nullified next to those as well.
Okay. Well, so that's interesting. That makes sense. Yeah. I've thought about using spyglasses, but only for those weird, like loot goblin ones. I don't know. That's like the Diablo term, but like, you know what I'm talking about? The like little moon, they're not moons because they're moon guys too, but like just like the same.
It's almost
man,
like the yin and yang symbols.
Yes. The teardrop. The teardrop ones that seem like they're there for you to try to figure out fast and get lucky and then get some good loot or experience or whatever.
Yes. Before we go to those, I also want to name that, like, I was inspired to try sleep on the Hydra by the fact that the Sandman creature was kind of in the area right before. You kind of go up these ramps and there's all these little like moon-headed fellas. Yeah, and they are resistant to sleep, but they give you some sleep abilities. And then the mermaid as well had a sleep ability. And I felt like,
oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
They're nudging me in that direction.
I'm going to start paying more attention to that kind of stuff too. Because I definitely see that. Like the Hydra was also or was susceptible to ice, right?
That's right.
And that's it, correct? Fire, maybe? No,
no. I think it was
just
ice.
So like, you know, having the mermaid felt, I don't know, like you kind of just met the mermaid and you're on a mermaid mission, but you can't get to it, and that was maybe another hint that you use their ability. I don't know.
I think so a little bit that that character was pretty prominent, and a lot of the fusion possibilities lead up to the mermaid as well.
Right.
And then there were other ice creatures that were kind of awards for other quests and things that, once again, it feels like it's not telling you directly, but it's hinting at what you need going forward.
Yeah. Well, there's so much we should talk about.
Yeah.
So whichever direction you want to take it, it's fine. But I feel like we're kind of talking about the elemental part right now, so maybe we should explore that a little bit more.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Let's talk about the press turn system. When you hit the elemental weaknesses, you deal extra damage like you would in Pokemon or other games where you have these elemental weaknesses and resistances. But you also gain an extra turn for your party as well. And then similarly, if you hit a critical on a physical hit, you get an extra turn and you get that extra damage. If you miss, however, you've missed that attack, and you lose 2 turns from your turn roster. And this works for the enemy as well. If they hit your weaknesses, that they gain those extra turns. And I mentioned the miss. It's the same for resistances, or there's the half shield, which is resistance. That means you take half damage, but turns aren't affected. It's the nullify, which is the full shield, where damage doesn't happen at all, and you lose 2 turns.
Okay, that also informs me about something that I didn't quite understand or / just think about, which is that sometimes those shields on the elements are half and sometimes they're full, and sometimes you hit somebody and it says, I don't know, what does it says, like resistant, and then sometimes you hit somebody and it's a complete like block.
That's the difference.
Okay, that makes sense. Also, like I did cheat a little bit because I think I've been I'm not somebody who likes to read about games when I'm playing them, but I just decided that after I died to the Hydra the first time, I would read a little bit more about this game, because I also just feel like I don't understand all the mechanics, and that wouldn't, I don't know why, that it just didn't bother me, but it didn't. And I saw something about what their strength is, so I did use an essence on the Nahobino to make them resistant or whatever to, is it fire, whatever the Hydra could do. That's right. I think it was fire. Yeah. So that might have also given me a leg up, if that makes sense.
Yes. And I think so these systems, figuring out these systems, I think is supposed to be part of the fun of the game of you get destroyed by a creature, and then it's, how do I need to retailor my party? How do I need to change my main character to meet the challenges that are coming at me right now?
Okay. You saying that too, because I'm a big fan of like Metroidvanias, and I think that's what a Metroidvania is, but this is a turn-based version of it, right? Like, I don't know, I'm sure somebody else has made this connection before, but like, you know, you go into a boss fight in a Metroidvania and you expect to lose. You might want to, and maybe you even are like, I want to just survive, right? Like, I don't even want to attack them. I just want to learn what they're trying to do to me. Yeah. And in this game, maybe you go into a fight and you're like, I want to die, or I know I'm going to die, but I want to get as much info out of this as I can. The same sort of thing, right?
I think that's right. Is learning kind of the ins and outs of that battle so that you can prepare and come back next time. And if you have the tools ready to go, that's great. And
you get lucky on the first guess or whatever. Yeah,
that's right.
Well, so I haven't used a spyglass. Do you if you go into a boss fight, do you immediately use a spyglass every time?
I carry 5 with me at any time.
Is that the most you can have?
I think you can have more, but I'm
make sure you always have 5.
I go for 5, and the reason is because, like you said, you run into the little yin and yang teardrop friends who can do do major drops, and I've run into 2 or 3 kind of back to back.
Gotcha.
And then when you go into a boss battle, either you're versus one thing, or sometimes you're versus 2 things on the other side. And
I see.
Just being able to kind of know what's going on. I try to keep those stocked up as much as possible.
That's a good tip. I think the whole turn-based system of this game and some of these elements, like I'm just through talking to you, I'm realizing some layers I was missing out on by either just luck or playing on casual or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think it's great. Like I'm really enjoying it. And I think I love turn-based role-playing games. I like the pace of them because I like obviously just said I like Metroidvanias too. So that's like obviously the opposite. That's like fast paced in the moment. But like, I think there's something I like. I'm really enjoying playing this game because I can just kind of zone out and like grind a little bit sometimes and play turn based. And I don't know. I like the way what is it called? The press turn system works. It was confusing to me until we did the podcast the other night, but that put a lot of it in place for me.
Yeah.
And since then, because I think before that I was just kind of playing and like doing a lot of physical attacks and like, because I mean that's just how I like typically play a turn-based game. Though, like Octopath Traveler, I think is a game that finally kind of broke me of that. Finally made me realize that maybe I need some buffs and debuffs, and like the whole boost system in that game is a little bit similar to this of like you want to do a certain thing to then have this other certain thing happen,
this, like, build up
and like ordering your turn a little bit, which is a little bit like this, right? Like, if I get 2 attacks on their elemental weakness, then that will allow this character to perform a heal, which I desperately need, or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yes. And that's also, so once again, maybe difficulty changes this, but in Pokemon, say you know your enemy's elemental weakness, normally it takes 1 to 2 hits to kind of take out that Pokemon if you have that elemental. And I know that the Pokemon battle system can get more complicated than that, but especially if you're playing the story, that's kind of
it's pretty
straightforward. And so, come at me in the comments. But maybe on casual, you can hit the elemental weaknesses back to back to back, and that will win you the fight. That is not true for my SMT4 experience on normal or my SMT5 experience on hard, which is if I sit there and say my enemy is weak to electricity, my main character and my 3 demons all have electric magic attacks. Even if I'm sitting there wailing on them back to back, that is not going to win me the battle. I need to be putting them to sleep or confusing them, putting haze on them, or mirage, I think is what it's called in this game. Mirage. I need to be healing, buffing, debuffing, and at the cost of not getting those extra press turns. And so it becomes this balance of when do I need to hit those weaknesses and when do I need to apply debuffs and ailments.
I'm still super early on, so I can't speak to 100% of what the casual experience is, but I will say I am actually doing a little bit of buffs and debuffs.
Yeah.
I am doing like the whatever that meter is that we just said, the meter.
Let me recheck.
If you fill it up,
it's a harder name for sure. Magatsusui. Even looking at it, I have a hard time.
I don't know how to say it. Magatsui meter allows you to do a party-wide buff as the Nahabino, I believe.
That's right.
So I try to do that on any boss for like a turn when I know I'm going to get some extra hits in. And then I also have been debuffing some of the bosses with the defense down. But those are, I think, the extent of what I've done. And so that also makes me think I should probably knock it back up to normal, just to experience a little bit more of that challenge, because I don't need to just walk through it.
Yeah.
But I also am totally okay with it not being ridiculously hard and crushingly, because I feel like again, I'm on casual and I've lost some stuff and I'm still new to it, and I've had multiple scares. Like I went to fight that lion demon and then like was hurt afterwards, and then was kind of trying to run back to a save point and somebody jumped on me, that I wasn't expecting. And it's like, oh, I'm in trouble here if I'm not, you know what I mean? So I'm still feeling like, even though I'm on casual, it's not like story mode or something. Maybe I'm just bad at games.
Patrick, I think I'm about to rock your world in another game mechanic way.
What am I missing?
I'm going to double check. I've got my game up here to make sure I'm going to tell you the right thing. The L button will...
Yeah, I've never touched the L button for sure.
Will take you to your latest ley line so you can save. So if you do something and you're like, shit, I need to get back to the ley line and save, you just hit that L button and it'll take you back to the last one.
Yeah, that blows my mind. I'm going to try to experiment with it. I'm pushing the L button. You have to be far away or like...
I don't know. Or maybe that's something you unlock later, but
I don't think I have that.
Okay.
Or maybe it's just not on casual. I don't know.
Okay.
But I don't have it on mine.
Got it. I did not.
Or maybe that's one of the miracles or something.
It might be. I don't remember when I got this ability, but I know I use it often.
Well, that makes sense. I would use that too if I had it.
Okay. Well,
but it's also entirely possible I'm not aware of things, because I feel like I also today just kind of started to understand essences, and that was through reading about the game. And that's where I was like, it's fine if I get a little bit of spoiler for this early game stuff, because I didn't understand what the point of the essences was. Like maybe we can talk about demon fusion and essences now, just because naturally I'm leading us down that.
Before we do, one last comment about the press turn system that I want to share is that guard is an action, and I know that is not used very often in RPGs.
Yeah.
The guard crit damage will be normal, and any additional damage that would be dealt by elemental weakness also nullified.
So are you actually using guard in this game occasionally?
Yes, and I will actually say I think the boss after the Hydra is a little bit of a gut check. Her gauge ability that comes up will destroy you damage and status wise. She has two elements that it's very hard to be prepared to not take damage from either of them. And I think she's a little bit of a gut check of, are you using your guard ability from time to time?
Okay. So like, can you give me a scenario? Either we've given spoiler warnings, but this whole podcast is arguably a spoiler. I don't know how far we'll go in this first episode. Obviously, you know where I am, which is at that point of just after the first major boss, and we're now talking about maybe the next one, which I'm fine with. Why would I use guard? Like, can you walk me through that a little bit? I still don't. So like, it's about to be their turn, and they're going to do a mega attack because their meter is full.
So if that gauge is going, and you know that members of your party are weak to their element, or once again, it's a guaranteed crit for them, so that's them gaining consecutive turns back to back.
Okay.
It would not be the worst idea to get as many turns as you can by hitting their weaknesses, but then making sure every member of your party by the end of your turns has guarded. So once again, say whoever you're fighting has a weakness to electricity. If you hit them with 2 electricity attacks and you only have 4 turns left, have everyone else guard from there on out. And then when their gauge hits and they're doing criticals, you'll be taking normal damage, but they won't be benefiting from weaknesses. They won't be benefiting from critting damage wise.
Right.
And they won't be getting those extra turns, and that's huge.
Before we move on then from the press turn 2, can I ask this question? How many?
Of course.
You can maximum have 8 or like 8 hits basically, or 8 turns, right? Like 8 character movements, because is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
right.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But let's tell me about your experience with essences. Any questions or?
Yeah. So I think when it was introduced, I didn't understand the importance or the reason you would use essences as opposed to fusions. Like, it just didn't make sense to me. Like, again, maybe it's just too much information, or maybe it wasn't explained well. That's fine. But I finally understood it after reading about, like, was like, oh, or like, I went and looked up the Hydra. It's like, if you're having a tough time, make sure you use an essence to make yourself not weak to fire in this case, which I think my character was weak to, and maybe is purposefully for this reason. And so I was like, oh, that's why you use an essence, to like change around elemental strengths and weaknesses. Is there any other reason to use an essence?
There is. So only the Nahobino can use them to change their resistances and their weaknesses, which is super cool that you can do that. But then your main character and the rest of your party can learn abilities from those essences as well. So say, and this is,
I think I had accidentally done that because like the game like made you do that, maybe, or maybe when it was introducing essences, or maybe it just like encouraged me to, and then I was like, okay, I don't see the point of this because this character has better attacks than this in that moment, or maybe, which probably isn't true because again, you might need a certain element or something.
Well, and so you fuse away your last monster that has ice attacks, and you're like, oh shit, I don't have anyone on my party who has ice attacks anymore. You go to your fusing list, doesn't include anyone with ice attacks, but you go to your essences and you still have an essence of a low level monster that had ice. You can put that on any of your other magic creatures, and you'll want to look and see like who's good at ice.
Oh, where does it say who's good at ice?
Oh man. Okay, so if you go to the status of a demon, I'm pulling it up here right now. It tells you like little pluses or minuses.
Right. Okay.
And about different skills.
In the stats, sort of top right of the screen, skill. Okay.
So right now I am showing Patrick my Apsaurus, I think is how I'm going to say her name. And so she has a +2 to ice, but she has a - to fire. So like,
if I put a fire ability on them, it would be not very effective.
That's right. So I have given her though an electric attack. So something you do want to do is have monsters that have offensive attacks other than what they're strong at, so that like she's weak to fire, right? And so she's gonna I guess what I'm trying to say is that like you don't always want to, I'm resistant to this and I'm offensive with the same thing. You want to kind of mix and match that for variety purposes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And the essences is one way to kind of accomplish that.
Yeah. How do you get an essence?
There are a number of ways. I think there is an in-game name for these, but the like D20 glowy yellow gold friends, when you break them open, they give you rewards. Sometimes it'll be
like treasure chests.
Yeah. And like sometimes that'll be money or kind of more common things, but more often than not, they're essences. And I think sometimes you get them, often you get them as rewards for quests.
Okay.
So those have been kind of the main ways that I've noticed you get essences.
Yeah, because I feel like I just have them. And I'm never like, probably because of that. I mean, those aren't ways where you're like actively, you just get a random one or whatever. So that's where I'm like, I don't know where I got this because I'm not paying good attention, I guess. And I'm bad at games, yo, I guess.
No, you're great. And you should use them fairly liberally because like, for instance, I am on my like third demon essence of the demon called Demon.
Right. You'll get more is what you're saying.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And as you go on, you will kind of, especially certain ones, see kind of reoccur over and over.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I think in sort of stereotypical gamer fashion, definitely there's an instinct to want to hoard things or like use it when you need it, and but even then kind of think about it. But I'm trying to let go of that in this game, especially with the demons themselves, because I feel like that's the point, right? Like you fuse, you whatever, like you'll get another one, or if not, who cares, because there'll be higher level ones later or whatever.
I also so and the previous podcast we did, the Switch Heads episode, we were highly encouraging a fusion, and someone left a comment on it today. I wish I could remember their name in this moment, and I don't. But in that comment, they were like, I just collect them, and I did that through SMT4. I did that through Strange Journey. I don't really fuse them very often because I get emotionally attached to them, and I'm doing that here too. Am I playing this game wrong? And what I want to say is you play this game however you want to play and enjoy it. It was on Facebook.
Oh, okay. Trying to pull it up, but fair enough.
So A of all, play the game how you're having fun. But I will say that like Fusion gives you access to monsters that will not be available on the map yet. And so you are missing out on some of the power that is available to you in that moment if you're not fusing at all. I will say, so coming from SMT4, I was fusing way more frequently, and I think that was because the monster design was so there are about 200 plus in this game. There were over 400 in SMT4, which is easier because it was 2D. But I think that also meant that it was set up where I could fuse just regularly, and you could fuse at any point. You didn't have to be at a ley line or a save point. So it was like, my creatures are about to die. I don't have any heals left. I am going to fuse some monster so that I now have this new higher level, fully HP MP monster that is going to carry me through this next leg until I'm able to heal everyone else back up.
Well, here's my issue with that question. I just looked it up. It's Vincent. Hey, Vincent, if you're listening.
Hi, Vincent.
But you only have so many slots to carry demons. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how. I'd be curious how they're like, or is that more like they pick the ones they like and they, don't want to evolve them? Because I'm kind of curious how, I guess, because they do level up. So like if you find a team you like, and then you could just use essences to give them different skills, I guess. But what I was kind of, it's like, I also kind of just want to have one. The reason I am happy with fusing is like, ooh, what's the newest one I can get? Yeah. And to see somebody new. But I could see that. I definitely felt that a little bit at the very beginning when you first did the first fusion. It's like, oh, goodbye, Pixie.
Bye, best friend. Yes. And I can also say you can put yourself in a pickle with fusion as well. And by that I mean, so I'm in an area now where there's a monster who has both light and dark attacks, and the light and dark attacks can proc instant kills if they hit someone who's weak to them. So it can, and it once again it can do both of those, both light and dark attacks. So I'm at a point where it's encouraging me to make these kind of higher 20, 23 level fusions, and most of them are weak to either light or dark and then resistant to the other.
Right.
And it's like, there's this temptation to create this party of all these new demons, but then all of them would have one of those weaknesses and I would get wiped. And so it's kind of encouraging you to be conscientious about your fusions as well. And not just because it's the latest toy you have access to, but does it make sense for the challenges, the battles that you're getting into during that stage of the game.
Okay. Fair enough. Also, we got to mention, I guess, the fusion cutscene.
It's gorgeous.
So I think I posted this on the Switch as Discord, but it definitely makes me think of that Simpsons episode, which I'm isolating some percentage of our listeners, but like where they play Indagata da Vida is on the organ at the church. Just that sort of pipe organ experience in that cutscene is hilarious and like very over the top.
Over the top drama. We love it.
With the giant lady's boobs right behind him in the frame, but I do like that. What's her name? Lady or
Sophia.
Yeah, that's right.
Wisdom.
I like the voice acting for her, and it's cool design, and I don't know.
It's one of those over the top kind of more anime moments in the game. Another one is when our protagonist fuses with Aogami, maybe, to become the Nahabino. It was a fun kind of transformation scene, but I kind of wish there was like almost a Sailor Moon theme that started some kind of song that kind of marked it as really special, and it could have used a little bit more drama and pizzazz in my opinion.
So maybe now we're just kind of naturally talking about the visuals and the story a little bit too. So maybe we can talk about those sort of things, like because you mentioned early on that Shin Megami Tensei games are all kind of set in a post-apocalypse, that sort of isolation feeling. The game doesn't open that way. It opens where you're a high school student at a very busy subway station or high school entrance or whatever, and then like you go to a class, and that felt to me very like, again, I've only watched a tiny bit of it, like Persona like in terms of the way it was playing and stuff. And I really enjoyed it. And then we got thrown into this other world, and it's like, oh, okay. I guess that was just for that. But it did have like a map and stuff, and there were areas you can't go. So I assume at some point, maybe we'll go back to it. I don't need to know the answer to that right now because I don't, but I'm okay knowing it too. But it just feels like it's possible / likely. Otherwise, why make that map and all that?
I will say, after the next boss, you will kind of get your answer to that. I also feel like this game is playing with your expectations of. I think I will save going deeper into these spoilers for the next time where you likely have discovered this. But I think it's playing with our expectation of, in past Shin Megami Tensei games, we're in a Tokyo that has experienced this ravage, and we're very post-apocalypse. We're not mid-apocalypse.
Yeah, this feels kind of like maybe this is well, I'm just speculating now, so maybe it's not worth it, but like either a vision or I don't know, like or like simultaneously you're in two places kind of a thing happening. But again, I'm just guessing, so maybe I'll shut up.
I'll say they're playing with that in a certain way that we can probably get into deeper episode 2.
Sounds good. But like the opening of this game was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I did like the cinematics. I just feel like I really did have a moment where they were kind of introducing these school. You're like, they're not your friends, but or the other students at this school that you meet. And I was like, man, this feels really good. Like this, like for a video game, like I feel like they did a really good job with those cinematics and like the way that the dialogue choices appear and stuff like that. And so that's cool.
Yeah. And we, like you said, we start with the school scene and these characters, and we very quickly move away from them.
Yeah.
And there is this, so you said 7 hours in, and you have seen one of these other characters very briefly.
Yeah, well, yeah, 2 now, I guess, but yeah, both very briefly in the post-apocalyptic world. Yeah, and yeah, like didn't I meet some like his sister and this other random girl, and they was like a lot of time zooming in on them, and like it's like they felt like they would be here within the first 10 hours of this game a little more. Yeah.
So once again, not going deep,
right.
But I'm at a point in the game where I'm feeling like those characters are paying off, and I now understand what they're working with there, and it's feeling satisfying to me. So I'm curious to see what you think once you get there.
Okay. well, I'll hurry up and stop wandering around in every corner of this thing, because I definitely so there's Gustav, and then there's the Min Men guys, the like little guys you're trying to find out in the world.
Yes, as David called them, the Koroks of this game.
Right, the Koroks.
The Mymen, I think.
Yeah, Mymen, yeah. I just think of Min Men from Arms when I see it. So
just want to slurp up their noodle arms.
So I definitely am like spending too much time looking at every nook and cranny, but
I think that's part of the fun of the game.
Yeah. And I think there's also, I'm right a lot of the time. I've discovered, you know, like, I'm like, I bet you there's one over here. And I'm not always right, but like, I had a very satisfying experience of like, I'm sure there's one in this area. And like, it took me a while, and then I found it. I'm like, yep, I knew it. You know, it just felt like there had to be one over here.
Yeah. You were also close to kind of an area right after the Hydra, and it's something maybe you haven't quite found it yet. But it is more of a kind of city wasteland where you're just more open to roam.
Yeah.
And you're kind of jumping in and out of buildings, and those little guys are littered everywhere. And it feels so satisfying. I spent way too much time in that area because I stopped battling for a little while and was just kind of exploring back and forth. And it was easy to kind of get lost in that, but it's satisfying, and I think that's part of the fun of the game.
Yeah, there's definitely a big sense of exploration in this world where there really isn't that much stuff, but it does feel like I want to explore, and there is payoffs for it. And it's weird the way it's designed. I mean, I'm not complaining about it, but like, it's not an open world. It's kind of, you're on rails, but then sometimes there's these thin strips that lead you to another section, but you're kind of locked in there. And like, for example, today I got to one of those little strips that's kind of locked off. It's like, but I could see the other one right over that rock. Why can't I just jump over there? But I can't, you know? And I think maybe that's another Breath of the Wild like reference here, but that game is kind of sometimes hard after you've played that to go to something where you're like, I can see another area that I know isn't walled off, like, and you know what I mean, or that is walled off between them, but why can't I just go over there? But
I feel like Breath of the Wild has like spoiled us, especially in movement, right? Of like,
yes, movement.
I should be able to just go there now. And
it doesn't really spoil me because I understand and it doesn't bother me that much. But there was one instance where I was like, I know it's right there. But anyway, but nonetheless, I think it's for how barren the world is, it still is fun to explore. And like, I think I don't know of many turn-based RPGs like this, like where the exploration is this good, and it's not like, I wouldn't say that the character's movement is super great, but it's fun to watch this blue-haired creature walk around. And when they walk down a hill, that animation is always funny to me too. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where they kind of slowly sidestep down and sashay down the hill, which is actually kind of how people walk down a hill, but the stylization of it is interesting.
It's satisfying for you. I can tell.
I like it. Yeah.
And I that's interesting about the hair. I feel like the hair adds a good element of movement, and especially your character puts their arms out pretty stagnantly. And I was thinking about how awkward that would look without the hair. And
I don't notice it as much.
That's right. I feel like the hair adds movement that makes your character feel natural, in a way that like I think that's why the hair's there a little bit.
Yeah. While we're talking about that kind of stuff, maybe music too. Like we talked about this in the main Switchheads episode about this, but like having in the sound effects, maybe we can talk about that too, and sort of voice acting and that kind of stuff. Like, I really like the voice acting in this game of a lot of the characters, though I do think that sort of filter that they put on almost all the demons feels like a little much sometimes to me. Like, I'm not complaining. Again, I think this is well done, and the actual line delivery is pretty good, and it's relatively well translated or written. But like, every character has that tinny, all the demonic characters have that tinny, like, filter on it, and it's like, can't one of them have a slightly different voice filter, maybe? Or
maybe that's why I fell in love with Gustav. I feel like maybe his voice is a little bit more natural sounding.
Gustav and Sophia like don't have that, and maybe that's purposeful. Maybe it makes maybe the idea is that all those demons are kind of, you know, chattel or whatever, or like you know what I mean, like don't matter as much, or you know, and so when you hear them talk, it's like that. But like,
yeah, and maybe this is not as successful, but so the kind of reverberating or the filter sounds, I think are supposed to make them feel otherworldly, but I think more than that is like, if you talk to demons out in the world, sometimes they make noises and that, and I think it's a way for like them to bridge kind of like Animal Crossing mumbles, like but like, so you've heard them talk in this voice, so then when they make these noises that sound kind of reminiscent, it kind of creates a through line of those, and that way they are able to vocalize without having voice lines for some of the like world stuff.
So the music in the actual netherworld, you know, the first area, at least I'm sure it's different elsewhere, like I think it's all right. It is kind of like spooky and like legitimately sometimes occasionally there's just like a little stinger in it, which like kind of catches me off guard every time it happens, almost, where it's like, and I'm like, oh shit, like am I nearing an enemy? You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
but I think it's just random and I'm not nearing an enemy, but it feels like a threatening stinger.
What this makes me think of, so that's true about just the overworld music having these like stingers, but then there's also or kind of a little ways on, you'll get this quest where you have to make a decision, and at least the decision I made when I fought the person I had to fight, I was introduced to the soundtrack when they're like, okay, we're gonna fight because we disagree. That is like 3 successive like dun dun dun, and then these high vocals of like ah, 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 and I was like, shit's getting real. Like I tensed up, my body tensed up at the change of this music. I think it is good at getting these like bodily reactions out of you.
It's got some unsettling music in this, but not so unsettling that you don't want to listen to it, but like it is not, doesn't jump out at me as like I'm gonna say this is the best soundtrack ever, because I think intentionally it's kind of not grating, but you know, dissonant and kind of like not melodic. And
it makes me think of the soundtrack for How to Get Away with Murder, of like, you're watching this show and they're purposely pumping you with this electronic music that has your anxiety up, and that is the point of the music, is to make you feel the anxious energy of the show. I think this music is musically similar and is trying to accomplish that same thing.
Yeah, it makes me anxious. It is accomplishing that for me.
It's the kind of music I listen to in the shower, but I understand that's not everyone's cup of tea.
I don't dislike it. I just don't love it either. But again, I think it fits, and that's makes sense. What else have we either not covered or glossed over that we want to make sure to hit?
I kind of want to ask you about your favorite monster designs or demon designs so far.
Yeah, you know, that kind of ties into the art and stuff too. Like, I think the game looks really nice. But I do think some of the demons and stuff are unsettling to me too. Like, some of the designs I just don't like. like we were talking about the Sandman, the moon-shaped guy. I just think he looks weird. Like, it doesn't appeal to me in any way. And I'm not complaining. I'm killing him for the most part. So,
yeah.
But some of them I do think look interesting. Like the sort of floating lizard men, I think look okay. Like, I kind of like their look.
Okay.
Ayumi or whatever.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of sexy women, and I mean, as a straight guy, like, I like sexy women, I guess. But that's like, fair. But I don't know. But sometimes they're weird too. What were you gonna say?
Well, so I know the mermaid design is one that's getting a lot of
Yeah,
praise, and it is kind of a nudie
it is very nude.
lady.
Honestly, the mermaid kind of makes me uncomfortable.
Okay, well, so as a gay man, I appreciate the mermaid, but it doesn't have the same
Right.
things for me.
The mermaid is so nude looking to me that I'm kind of ashamed when it's on the screen.
I see. I see.
Like I'm afraid somebody's gonna see me and be like, "Well, my guy."
What are you playing?
Yeah, exactly. I swear it's for like combat.
Got it. I just wish I was a beautiful mermaid like her. I'm jealous. So that's interesting. That for me, I that the mermaid design, and I think the like she's both simple of like kind of naked lady, green hair, but then she has these floating fire skulls around her, and like, why are they there?
Yeah, the skulls are a weird addition to the mermaid.
But I love it.
Yeah, it is kind of a cool contrast.
Mm-hmm.
I also like the angel's appearance a lot.
Yes.
That I feel like that looks like an angel statue a lot.
So this one is actually I'm glad that you brought up the angel, because there has been kind of the classic SMT angel for a while where it was a blonde woman who almost had these like bondage leather straps around her and then chains, and I think that it did a good job of being edgy and communicating that this is not your normal angel game,
right?
But they did not feel like real ambassadors of there's kind of order and chaos are kind of the two factions that we feel
we
like
should
are
kind of talk about that at some point. But yeah.
At war, and the angel design never quite spoke to what the faction of order is. It was this more kind of sexy to be sexy, where maybe the mermaid has taken some of that, but the angel does feel mechanical and kind of cold in this orderly way.
Yeah, and I think about when like I think it feels very Western angel in terms of its appearance, the gold face. Like this, it looks to me like an angel statue. It reminds me kind of like the weeping angels from Doctor Who, if you're familiar with that. But also, like you said, that sort of coldness of it, and I think the portrayal of angels in Western religion, it's that sort of idea of them being like another level of being that's kind of scary.
Yes,
but also iconic of an angel. That angel has that vibe of like, I don't want to run into that angel. Like
unsettling.
Unsettling, but like kind of what you think of as an angel too. So like, I think they did a good job with that look. I like the angel.
Yeah.
I don't know the names very well, but the big crab looking demon, I like that one's design a lot.
It's red hair. It's cute. Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, there's some that I just don't like, but even those I can appreciate like a little bit. The whole vibe of the game is a little bit unsettling. And I mean, I know that's somewhat intentional, and but it definitely is unsettling to me. And I know everybody, like you said, not everybody has the same tastes and all that too. So.
Sure. I also Devilman. I feel like it. So we've talked about how it comes from this novel series, but I feel like there is this kind of lineage of anime that kind of takes on these more religious symbols and plays with them and plays them up. And the Devilman series, and specifically the more recent Netflix Devilman Crybaby, if you're like the fan of that kind of stuff where it takes religious imagery and plays it up in kind of I don't want to say sacrilegious way, but in kind of more of a an epic way that I feel like we in the West are nervous to do, because there is this respect around it. But they take these powers, like good and evil, and really kind of amp it up in a entertaining anime way.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, because I do find that a little unsettling, but I was raised a little religious.
Right.
And I'm curious if Eastern audience it has that same kind of
Yeah.
scandal impact.
Well, also, you're thinking about this game. We didn't talk about this here, but we talked about this before. This game is obviously doing pretty well in the West, and that might just be timing / this game's been promoted for a while / Persona's success / the Switch and all that. But I do also think maybe the timing of what you're talking about, the Western audience maybe being more ready for playing with some of this iconography in ways that is different or like quote unquote disrespectful. Not really, but like, because, I think popular culture shows like Lucifer and a lot of, even major things you think about like Doctor Strange and stuff, like a lot of like that stuff is more mainstream now than it was 10 years ago, much less 20. You know what I mean?
I think that's right. I think I'm encouraged that the controversy around this game has been about the reviews that compare it to Persona and other things like that, when this game has a demon lizard lady who's cut in half and there's a tongue both coming out of her torso on either end, and she's like rubbing her rump, like,
and there's Lucifer killing God and stuff like that. Yeah,
that's right. But these, like, I feel like a decade ago, if this game was promoted as strongly as SMT5 is now, a decade ago,
on a Nintendo system, etc.,
we'd be having a different conversation. I think that's right.
Cool. What else should we talk about? Is there let's talk a little bit about the chaos versus order stuff, because that's hinted at right before the first boss, the Hydra boss that I fought, or there's a big cutscene about that, and I understand that that's a big part of this series, right?
Yes.
Interestingly, when I was doing a little bit of reading about Shin Megami Tensei, the early games and stuff, the author actually of the Digital Devil novels, I forget the full name now, talked about how they I'm gonna look their name up again if I can find it real quick. I can't, but that's fine. They talked about how when they were first writing these books, and like a long time ago, they were more on a chaos side, but as they've gotten older, they're more on order side, which I thought was interesting. Not that but I don't know if that's a typical person's trajectory or just like or not, but I think it's makes sense to me. I think it's kind of a lot of people's trajectory of like, you get older, you get more conservative or whatever is the trope, but maybe you don't get conservative, you just get like rules are important. Kind of.
That's fascinating. So I want to talk personally what my trajectory has been, but then I before we go there, in the games there is an alignment system. Order, chaos, and neutral are kind of the three paths, and normally there's also a fourth kind of true path that is unlocked in a different way. And in SMT4, your decisions in conversations, there was kind of an invisible alignment gauge that you were ticking either closer towards chaos or order depending on your decisions in text. In this game so far, there's a quest where you're kind of asked to choose who to side with right before the Hydra, a side quest. And I feel like that is maybe one of the first things that will pivot what your alignment is in this game. And that passive alignment that you don't see will influence how easy it is for you to recruit demons that are more chaos or more order oriented going forward. And in 4, it influenced your ending without there being a big decision moment. Doing as spoiler-free research as I could to understand the alignment system to make decisions going forward, my understanding is that there is this passive alignment that will matter in certain story beats, but at the end of the game, you will be given a final breaking point decision where you'll have all three choices. So all
Gotcha.
three endings will still be available to you.
That's good to know.
Yes.
Because you were making me nervous that I made an early on choice unknowingly. Because I'll be honest, that choice that you're talking about, where you side with Leanne or the other person,
Yeah.
whatever their names are, I just blindly was like, I don't even remember what Leanne said to me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they said to go kill somebody, and I'm here, and you're saying not to, but sorry. I'm already here. I don't want to have to trek back over there and then trek back over here. So I'm just going to go with this.
So in the game, I sided with the more order oriented demon and killed Leanne or Leanna or whatever her name is. And I made a few other decisions that probably pointed me towards order, but then I got to another point in the game where I feel like my decisions flopped, and
Gotcha.
it wasn't on purpose. It was a natural, like, oh, I felt like this was the right thing in this instance, and and now I feel like the order side is maybe not who I want to align with in these certain story beats.
Maybe Elder Scrolls screwed me up, because I feel like early on playing Skyrim, I would have these decision issues of like, well, who's really right here? And then you learn the more you play Skyrim, everybody's fucked up and there's no right answer. And like, they're all cheats, you know, or like, you know, there's not a moral choice in a lot of the situations. So I was kind of like, whatever, you're going to die, even though I kind of agree with what you're telling me.
That's hilarious. I want to say that I actually feel like my personal trajectory has been the opposite, though. I feel like I grew up in a very ordered household and felt very kind of restrained by that, and tried my best to abide by that. And even into my young adulthood, tried to lean into that order. And I feel like that order has failed me in a certain way of like the promises of if I do these certain things, then that will pay off in a certain way has not been true. So I don't want to say I've gone like full chaos mode, but I've definitely been giving myself more liberties and feel like I can sympathize with chaos in a new way.
Yeah. Well, it's tricky to like extrapolate the concept of chaos versus order and map that directly onto real life. Like, what are we talking about? Yeah. You know what I mean? We're talking about government. Are we talking about like social norms? Are we talking about, because like depending on what framework we're talking about, I might lean one way or the other. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Like, I don't think we should all be the same boring people. You know what I mean? Like, so chaos should reign in terms of you know, like social things, but like, do we maybe need some form of order? Yes. And do we have a lot of that? Yes. But is it good? No. Like, it should be a different way. You know, it's like, it's tricky, but sure. But it is an interesting dynamic and lens to look at different things through. Maybe I'm kind of philosophizing over here a little bit.
We love it. But yeah, and it feels like a chaos versus order feels like it can, as you said, feel kind of nebulous. And I feel like it starts out that way. And then as you play, it's showing the complexity of that kind of going forward. There's a story beat that I'm really excited, or like not even a beat, an element that was kind of hinted at early on that gets extrapolated more in the second part. And this, I'm kind of building up intentionally some anticipation for the story to come, because I think there's a piece I really want to dig into next episode about the demons and how they operate in this world that at least was different than SMT4. So I'm excited for us to dig into the story a little bit more.
Yeah, well, maybe that's a good place for us to wrap up. We covered a lot of stuff, but I'm sure we didn't cover everything. But we also mostly just talked about the first 5-ish hours of the game, mostly. So, yeah, I got to get back to this game and play and catch up with you a little bit more. Maybe put it back on normal.
I have played 20 hours this first week. I have really put a lot of time into it, and I once again I feel like I have finished the like first arc of the game, and I don't know how many there are, but I feel like there's a lot of content in front of me as well.
Yeah, then I think that does it. We're going to do a few of these. Sort of depends on how.
Yeah, we're kind of playing it by ear. We're not sure what the structure of the game looks like, so we're just going to kind of talk through it as we play, and feels natural.
Yeah, very organic approach to this spinoff. Will there be 2 episodes? 3, 4? I don't know. Somewhere in that range, 4, maybe. We'll find out.
Future people, let us know.
And yeah, we're going to be putting this out through the Switchheads podcast release, but we'll probably try to promote it elsewhere as well. So, but if you want to reach out to us, you can find us through the Switchheads groups. I think maybe the easiest thing, or you can email us at, even though the name of this show is Optimal Fusion, we have an email called Optimal Pairing, which was the previous one. Email us at optimalpairing@gmail.com.
I was looking shocked just because I forgot we had that email, but I do remember we have that. I'm excited to receive your messages there.
We'd love to hear from folks if you're playing the game, playing along with us. That'd be great.
Thanks for listening. Toodles.